Hello, everybody. This is Larry, the producer of The Darkness, Lemp, St. Louis Escape, and Creepy World. And Halloween is getting really close, and we're getting really excited. And it should be a big time in St. Louis for Halloween, and we're really excited about that. And on our YouTube page here, we've been trying to make videos and upload videos about things going on in St. Louis and things of that nature. So today we wanted to talk about the St. Louis Cardinals, because the St. Louis Cardinals are not very good, and they are not attracting very many people downtown. But why are they not attracting a lot of people, and why are they not very good? And we're also going to talk about, this is just my opinion, how could they turn it around, and what should they do? So we're going to talk about that a little bit today, but we want to remind you that there's a summer sale for the Lamp, Creepy World, and The Darkness through the end of August, and you can save up to 25% by buying your tickets now to the best haunted houses in America. Go to scarefest.fairticket.com. With that being said, we're going to start making podcasts. And if you haven't seen this on Instagram, we're up to like 62,000 Instagrams. We're at 1.1 million TikTok followers. And we want to connect with people in St. Louis and talk about things that are going on in St. Louis. For example, the Rams unfortunately left. I think that was due to very poor decision making and very poor leadership. But at the same time, we were able to sue the NFL and got all this money. What should we do with it? I'm going to make a podcast about that. I'm going to make a podcast about that from exact spot where I think I'm going to show you what we should do with that money. The NBA is going to expand. And of course, they're going to pick Los Angeles and Seattle. However, NBA teams move a lot. St. Louis needs a new arena. For many reasons. That's why we're not getting any NCAA events. We're never going to get another Final Four or anything like that because we have an outdated arena. New arenas have big lobbies. When Dave Chappelle came to town, everybody's standing out in the freezing cold while they want to lock your cell phone up. If you went to just the Indianapolis, the Indiana Pacers stadium or arena, all those people could have been inside. Not to mention the fact that they have a lot of space for media. Speaking of media, what has really happened is, especially on YouTube and podcasts, there's so many people doing podcasts about the Cardinals, and they do them every single day. And I think a lot of them are just Kool-Aid drinkers. And so I like to just tell it the way it is. There's a lot of interesting people on YouTube and podcasts talking about the Cardinals, and it actually gets very frustrating listening to them because either they're just talking pie in the sky, and I'll lay that on the Redbird rant guys. They don't understand because they probably never played baseball, never coached baseball. I played baseball, and I actually coach high-level teams. We had 8 Division I recruits. We have now 2, if not 3 people playing professional baseball from the team that I coach. Baseball is a skill sport, but with that being said, it's also very mental because you can struggle. And when you struggle, you take that with you on the field, whether it's batting, pitching, or anything else. When a pitcher is walking people or they don't have a lot of confidence in a pitch, they tend to try to pitch away, and then they tend to start walking people and they can't find the strike zone. It's very mental. There's not a Major League Baseball player in all of baseball that doesn't know how to throw a strike. I mean, come on, these guys, they literally can pick up darts and just like hit, all day long the bullseye. It's a mental game as much as it is a physical game. So when I look at the Cardinals right now, and this is something like, say, for example, Brendan Schaefer. I mean, he's got the most interesting page in my book. He talks 500 words a second, and he just never stops talking. And, he claims he's not a Cardinal fan, but yet his whole podcast is about the Cardinals. It's kind of weird. But, the reality is that baseball is a very much a mental game, and when you struggle big. And if you play football, for example, and you're a wide receiver and you're really fast, and there's probably not much struggling going on there, okay, because it's an athletic sport. So the more athletic you are, the better you're going to do. When it comes to baseball, on the other hand, you see athletes who are nowhere near the same condition as a football player, a boxer, or whatever. It's very much a skill sport, and it's also a mental sport. There is a lot of athleticism in it as well, whether you're going to hit a baseball or the fence. The stronger you are, the faster you can swing the bat, the farther you're going to and harder you're going to hit the ball. There's just a lot more going on in baseball. And when a team starts to struggle and they realize, hey, we're not very good, or I'm personally struggling, that's a big part of baseball. And if you ask me, I think the worst thing that ever happened to baseball was the movie with Brad Pitt, about the Oakland A's and Billy Beane, Moneyball, because everybody did adopt all of these aspects of baseball. But when you get down there, in the high school baseball, or you get down into Little League baseball, or where I was coaching Little League, and I coached all the way through, showcase baseball, which is very competitive. You don't have those kind of analytics. So you have to coach a team just like the Cardinals would have coached the team 20 years ago. The way Whitey Herzog would have coached, okay? You've got some information, but you really go on instincts. You play the game of baseball. The game of baseball has changed so much. Stealing is back only because they changed the rules about how many times a pitcher can throw over to first base or second base or whatever. But you don't see hit and run. You don't see bunting. You don't see trying to manufacture runs as they did with the running Redbirds back in the 80s. You don't see the traditional baseball stuff. And one of the coolest experiences of my life was playing. I took my team to Cal Ripken experience in South Carolina. And every time you have this experience, they're going to bring in Major League Baseball players and talk to the kids about baseball. And you know what was so weird is that the very week that we did the Cal Ripken experience, it was Cal Ripken. And he told the story about, as a shortstop, how he tried to earn the trust of the opposing players. And he used Rickey Henderson as an example. And he talked about how Rickey Henderson would, every time that he would steal second or, run the bases or whatever, he would dive head first and hurt his body. He played so hard. And so Cal Ripken would hold him up and say, hey, Ricky, foul ball, because he didn't want Ricky to slide in to second base head first or whatever. He would say, hey, foul ball, and he earned Rickey Henderson's respect and his trust. And then he said that he would be able to sit there on second base, talk to Rickey Henderson about, hey, I see that you're, hitting and running in this situation now for so-and-so and so-and-so. He would get information. But baseball isn't done that way anymore. Now it's run with computers. And I think that's where Ollie Marmol came from. When you look at La Russa, I'm sure he heard some of that information, but he's very much an instinct coach. I don't think that's what we have now. I think we have a team being run by a computer, with the analytics department, and I think that's what you have. And I think that you can't replace the understanding of a coach who's played 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 baseball games, because the more games you play, the more situations you've been, the more your instincts take over. And I think, so one of the problems with the Cardinals, in my opinion, is that they're probably a little bit too heavy on the analytics. And I think the analytics have led them in the wrong direction too often. I think a general manager also should operate on instincts also. And the Cardinals used to do that. And what's really sad in listening to all these podcasters, and I've heard them talk over and over and over again, and I'm just like, phew, okay. One of the things they keep talking about is that the Cardinals don't make big moves. That's just not what they do. That's just not what they do. Well, that is false. That is completely false. And I will explain it to you. When you look at the Cardinals and you look at some of their big moves, they made a lot of them. Scott Rowland. They tried to get Stanton. Don't forget. I mean, he was like literally at the time the biggest player in baseball. Turns out that was a good deal that they didn't sign him. But they did go all in to get him. That was an all-in move to take over a lot of salary, and they went for it. Mark McGwire was another big move. They didn't have to give up a lot of assets. Ace decided they were going to do one of their mini rebuilds, and the Cardinals took on a lot of salary to get Mark McGwire, and it paid off. If you ask me, that's really Mark McGwire is what kicked off this whole thing that the Cardinals could lead MLB in attendance. Then you have Goldschmidt was another big move. Arenado was a big move. Matt Halliday was a big move. Beltran. Lance Berkman. I mean, that was bringing in a really established guy. But I'll give you another one, was Tony La Russa. He was the manager of the Oakland A's. Oakland A's says, hey, we're going to tear this thing down. And the Cardinals went and got Tony La Russa. That paid off. The Cardinals made multiple World Series. They won 2 under La Russa, but they literally they made several championship games, several World Series, and they won 2. Now, if La Russa, now I'm not trying to disparage Ollie Marmol, but if Ollie Marmol was the coach of the 2011 Cardinal team that everybody wrote off, who thinks they would have even made the playoffs? I mean, I'm just saying. Okay, you can say a lot of bad things about La Russa. He's got a huge ego. Definitely has a drinking problem, but this guy understands baseball, and he earns the respect of star players. And he had a lot of star players playing under him, and I just don't think Ollie has that understanding and the respect from a guy that's never played baseball. You get a guy like Jim Edmonds, let's say. You listen to this guy talk about baseball, and he can almost predict exactly where the ball is going, what he would throw in this situation. If he was the batter, this is what he'd be looking for. That's a guy that understands baseball. And if he was coaching the team, and I'm just using him as an example, he would be coaching a lot from instincts and not so much from a computer, because he's an old school baseball guy. I firmly believe that's what the Cardinals need, is an old school baseball guy. I mean, obviously Yachty would be the best coach they could get, but you're not going to get Yachty to come in and be some bench hitting coach or bench like a consultant. He's a guy that's going to be like, hey, it's head coach or nothing. So I really don't understand the move of Ollie Marmol, to be honest with you. And then I don't understand extending him for 2 more years, because when you look at the team, complete collapse again, the whole first half of the season, then you had a little run, and now it's back to complete collapse. If you hadn't given him that extension, and the Cardinals aren't worried so much about the money that they're putting out, I think it would be safe to say he would be fired after this year, because the fan base is eroding. The people aren't coming to the games. The fans want heads, whether or not a manager could change the direction of the team or not is to be determined. But I do believe that if you had a La Russa type of coach, or if you had like a Jim Edmonds, or if you had somebody like a Yachty that literally understood the game and has been through all those ups and downs, they're able to communicate with those struggling players a lot better than somebody who's just an X's and O analytic person who's never actually played in Major League Baseball. So I think that's one of the big problems, and I think this is something like the Redbird rant kind of people don't understand. They don't understand, the mental toll that a long season and struggles and the media can have an effect on the players. But there's other reasons why the Cardinals aren't very good. And I believe that it really started with Jeff Lewandowski, who really ran the farm system, and he really worked it. Now, the Cardinals lost him, and this is a problem for the owner not to realize he was the star The owners would have brought him in, but there was just a point where you just got to like loyalty's got to go out the window because you're trying to win. That's what sports is all about. You want to win. Nobody likes a loser, and so he should have realized that Jeff Lewandowski was probably more valuable as a front office executive than the current one, Mo. We'll just call him Mo, and he should have said, well, Mo, we got to move you to a different spot or you got to go because we're going to name Jeff Lewandowski our general manager because we don't want to lose him to the Astros. Now, Jeff Lewandowski is no longer with the Astros, but Jeff Lewandowski is the one who turned over their farm system. He's the one who brought in all the players that they have literally won. I'm not sure how many it is, 3 World Series, or they've been to like 4 World Series out of 5 or something like this. It's basically, it's a modern day baseball dynasty. And that's Jeff Lewandowski. He's the one who did that. I mean, and I think the Cardinals recognize that, which is why, they hacked into his computer to see what players he wanted to sign or what players he wanted to draft. I don't think it's a mystery why that happened. I think they realized that Jeff Lewandowski was very smart and he was guiding the team. Now, since Jeff Lewandowski has left, the Cardinals have made a lot of mistakes, okay? For starters, one of the reasons why they're not very good, they can't evaluate an outfielder to save their life. If you had a ham sandwich here and an outfielder here, they wouldn't know which one to put in center field. That's just being honest. It's been a revolving door in the outfield. And by the way, when I was coaching, okay, I can tell you the most important players on the team really are the outfield. They got to be your most athletic. They got to run all over the place out there and catch those fly balls. And then typically outfielders, like especially left field, is somewhere where you can like try to hide a player who's not very good, but that hits home runs because the National League did not have the DH spot. And so when they got the DH spot, I'm pretty certain they would have loved to keep one outfielder that they gave up on, which was Ozuna. So let's talk about the Cardinals. They can't develop an outfielder. They can't develop a pitcher. I mean, it's like pathetic. They can't evaluate pitchers. They can't evaluate outfielders. So let's just start with Ozuna. First off, the Cardinals were completely outwitted by the Marlins because they said Yelich isn't available. Now think about where the Cardinals would be right now if they had Yelich. Would we have maybe won a World Series? Maybe, if we had Yelich. I mean, he was like an MVP. And he's been doing fantastic again this year, even though he's hurt again. But here's the thing. We wanted Yelich. We didn't get Yelich. Instead, we got Ozuna. Who did we trade for Ozuna? We traded 4 players for Ozuna. And just 2 of them just happened to be Cy Young award-winning pitchers. Okay, I know Gallen didn't win the Cy Young last year. He got second. And Alicart, I don't know if I can pronounce his name right. Alcantara, maybe. He did win the Cy Young with the Marlins, and Gallen essentially is proven to be a Cy Young level pitcher. He is proven to be an ace, and he helped get the Arizona Diamondbacks to the World Series. So we traded for Ozuna. We had him for 2 years. We got rid of him. We didn't re-sign him. And the disaster of that was giving away 2 players that could have helped the Cardinals in the Goldie era win the World Series. If we would have kept those 2 players, we probably would have won a World Series somewhere between the time we traded for Goldschmidt and today. But no, that was a disaster. Now let's look at all the other outfielders we just threw to the trash bin, like Pham. Now we traded back for him. I mean, Pham has been a really solid player, really solid outfielder. He would be, now we would take his best years after he left the Cardinals, he'd be the best outfielder we have today. And I'm not saying he's the best outfielder today. I'm saying he would be his best years after he left the Cardinals. He'd be the best player, best outfielder on the Cardinals. Lane Thomas, another guy we brought up for just a minute and we got rid of him. I mean, what did he do with Washington Nationals? Literally one of the worst teams in baseball. So you got nobody good hitting anywhere in the lineup with you. He hit 28 home runs. No Cardinal outside of O'Neill has hit 28 home runs since he left. This one really hurts. Adolis Garcia, another guy we gave up on. What has he done? Well, I mean, he won a World Series. Not only has he won a World Series, but he's also hit 40 home runs. He's consistently hitting 40 home runs. That's more than any of the outfielders we've had in the past decade. Randy Arozarena helped the Tampa Bay Rays become one of the best teams in baseball over his time there. Got him to the World Series. We became a World Series hero, even though they didn't win. He would have been our best outfielder. Okay, Randall Grichuk. Okay, since he left the Cardinals, he's hit over 30 home runs in one single season. I mean, it's basically a joke. Okay, and now you have Tyler O'Neill. It's just adding insult to injury. You let this coach who doesn't know how to handle veterans basically disgruntle O'Neill, and O'Neill's had some injuries. I get it. But at the end of the day, the guy is playing for the Boston Red Sox. He's got, 22 home runs, and he's had a couple injury spells, but he's hit 20 home runs. Then we look at free agents, okay? And we look at Dexter Fowler, Matz, and Gray. I'm going to tell you, this is where I have a problem with Locked On Cardinals. That's just too much Kool-Aid. And I like the Locked In Cardinals podcast, but he claimed Gray is a ace. Gray is not an ace. He's never going to be an ace. He's never been an ace in his whole career. Aces figure out how to win. They're savage winners. They just figure out how to win. Gray is not an ace. If he was on the Dodgers and all their guys were healthy, he'd be like their number 5. Okay, that's not an ace. If the Braves had all their guys, he'd be like a number 4. He'd be a number 5. Okay, what he is realistically is he's a good number 3. That's what he is. He's not an ace. You're not going to win a World Series with him being your first starter. It's just not going to happen. It's never going to happen. So imagine you're in the wild card game and you're playing the Padres, who are way better than the Cardinals, and you have to face Dylan Cease. We're losing that game for sure. You look at Carpenter. This was the biggest head scratcher. The guy is literally batting 200 and something, okay? And you're going to pay him for what he did last year, and he's literally can't hit a home run. He can't get on base. And then he extended him and gave him 2 or 3 years at $20 million. It made no sense. It made no sense. Look at Brett Cecil. What a disaster that was. The guy has no understanding of free agent signings. And let me just say this about Gray. We're paying him $15 million this year. We're paying him $30 million and then $35 million. If the Cardinals were to embrace the concept of rebuilding, which I think they should consider, how does Gray factor into that? You can't even trade the guy. He's making $35 million. Who's going to want to pay that guy to come on their team? Nobody. You couldn't give him away. If you said just take him, you couldn't get rid of him. No one would take him for that kind of money. There's also, like I said, there's also been so many bad re-signs, like Miles Mikolas, okay? He had one good year. He's really just been below average every year since, and he gives him $18 million over 2 more years. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy that he did that. Miles Mikolas is like a number 5. He should be a number 5 on any team, and you paid him like he's, for the Cardinal standards, a number 1. And then you look at the guys you've let go. And let's start with Lance Lynn. Even though you re-signed him when he's essentially, 100 years old, Lance Lynn was fantastic away from the Cardinals. He was fantastic with the Cardinals. This was a case where, they dropped the ball. They should have never let Lance Lynn go. You let Ozuna go. You let Walker go. I mean, look at Walker today. He'd be like our number 2. Tommy Edman, the Cardinals are going to really regret this trade because you can't sell tickets. Tommy Edman was by far your best defensive player. He was a good offensive player. If you let him loose, he probably could steal 30, 40 bases, but he was also the most popular player on the team. Who does the Cardinals sell tickets? How do they sell tickets? Who's the guy that you say, hey, come see this guy play? Well, Tommy Edman would have been one of them. Jack Flaherty. I mean, look, he wasn't a popular Cardinal, but look what he's done since he's left. Okay, look at it. He's on the Dodgers now. I mean, come on. He's going to get a World Series ring probably. Now that we've gone over all this, let's talk about how can the Cardinals turn this around. And then we're going to end this video. But I want to remind you, this Halloween, get your tickets. And I also wanted to say I am a Cardinal fan. However, I'm not a huge baseball fan like I would be for NFL or NBA, because the game is more action-packed. Our soccer team, I went to one game. I've never liked soccer or golf for that matter. Watching golf, I mean, like, I'd rather watch paint dry. But like soccer, it's like, are you kidding me? I went to a soccer game and the fans were so excited. Like, the game had so much energy. I was like, wow, this is fun. You go to a Cardinal game, you mostly just sit there, okay? And you just kind of like hang out. There's not a lot of action. I think that baseball has just lost a lot of fans to other sports like UFC, college football, college basketball. And when you think about the Cardinals, when their attendance really spikes up, like Mark McGwire, and then you carry that over, or bringing Albert Pujols back, that really spiked the attendance like big league. Why? Because people like seeing home runs. There is not a single guy on this team that hits home runs on the level that you can say he's a superstar. Not a single guy on the team is a home run hitting superstar. And the Cardinals refuse to pay for them because I believe that they're more quantity over quality, okay? Instead of putting their money into 5 or 6 like superstars and rolling the dice that they all stay healthy, they would rather just kind of sort of get a piece of bread and then just put the peanut butter on real thin so it covers the whole bread. And it's just not how you're going to win. When you look at the Cardinals, when they won the World Series the last time, you had a superstar pitcher that pitched in 3 games, Chris Carpenter. I mean, this guy's a superstar. He can win the game even if the offense doesn't play. When you look at the Pittsburgh Pirates, this is a team down the road that could be really, really, really dangerous if the ownership decides to build around Skeens. They've got two aces on that team. We have 0, okay? We have 0. The Pirates have 2. Pirates could go out and spend money and get 1 more and then get maybe 1 or 2 other hitters, and they're going to run the division. They're going to own it because they got 2 guys that can go out and shut down teams and get 0 runs. We don't have those guys. So here's, in my opinion, there's 2 ways to fix this team. And I want to mention the first one that none of these podcasters ever mentioned. This guy, DeWitt, has... he's ranked by Forbes as the 3rd richest owner in Major League Baseball. And one of the reasons is because of the value of the Cardinals. He paid $150 million to buy this team, which included a bunch of parking lots. He flipped those for $90 million. So he essentially bought this team for like $60 million, and today it's $2.5 billion. This guy has the ability to put money into the team. But we happen to have an owner that is not one of these egomaniac owners like the Mets. In other words, whatever it takes, I just want to win. Most billionaires are all about winning at any cost. And we have one that's running the team like it's a business with a bottom line, okay? This is how much we want to make. This is how much we can spend, okay? We're going to make this, and we're going to make this, and we're not changing the model. Even though the guy's 80 years old, he doesn't care. He doesn't care if he wins another World Series or not. I'm sure he would like to, but is he trying to? Is he like saying, hey, we're right there, okay? Let's pour the money in and take the risk and roll the dice and see what happens. No, okay? And he could do that. He could do that, but he's not going to. So, and then they're also not making trades anymore because they've made so many bad ones. They're afraid, would it be a mistake if we traded Jordan Walker and got a guy who's ready to win right now? The Cardinals should be ashamed of themselves because they literally wasted Goldie's best years. He won an MVP, and they did nothing to bring in a superstar pitcher. Didn't want to pay one. Didn't want to go over their limit on spending. So there's 2 ways to get out of this mess. The first way is to spend your way out like the Yankees, because, nobody's perfect. And I'm not saying the Cardinals are perfect or the Yankees are perfect or the Dodgers are perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. People have injuries, But the Yankees and the Dodgers spend their way out of it. Now, you're going to say, well, wait a minute, they have more money. I understand that. But Bill DeWitt has a ton of it. He's the third richest owner in baseball. He is not willing to spend his way out of it. He has the money. He's just unwilling to do it. And one of the things I really hated was when somebody from, I think from Channel 5, Frank Cusimano, asked Mo, he says, have you considered signing Trevor Bauer? And he says, no, I never thought like I would have to care so much about winning that I would resort myself to that. Well, for what reason? Ozuna beat up his wife. Okay, he's back in baseball and he's essentially an MVP for the Braves. Okay, Trevor Bauer was not charged with any crime, and in fact, the woman who accused him of everything is literally under federal indictment. Okay, let's just call a spade a spade. And I know Trevor Bauer has never been the greatest teammate, but you have a lot of veterans on the team. That would have been a cardinal move to go out and get a guy that you paid nothing for. You give him a small contract, and boom, he'd be your ace right off the bat. That would have helped, but no, we wouldn't do that. And so what we choose to do is to go out there and sign guys like Lynn and Gibson and get Fetty, you know, like these guys. Fetty is not an answer. He's a $7 million guy. Gibson's 12, Lynn's like 11. And go out there and you make a pitching staff of just like, hey, everybody's like in this range with no ace. Rather than not sign Gibson, not sign Lynn, not sign Gray, and take the money for the three of those guys, maybe even Miles, which you shouldn't have given, and get two aces and then rely on your farm system to fill in the rest, or go out and sign or trade for a guy like Fetty that only makes $7 million. No. Let's give five guys who are all mediocre, okay, this much money. Okay, and we have five starters. Well, it's not working. And when you get in the playoffs, you don't have a guy who can dominate. This is a problem. So here's my suggestion. If you're going to spin your way out of this, a way to do it would be go out and sign Max Scherzer next year and maybe sign a guy like Bieber, who's coming off of a serious injury, who will come back next year. And you might be able to get him at a good price. And then, then you would have Max, Bieber, Gray, and then Miles actually would get pushed all the way back to number 5, which is where he belongs. Okay, and you'd have Fetty at number 4. And then go out and make a big trade and get a big outfielder and go for it. And you know who I would trade for? I would trade for Mike Trout, because I think you could get Mike Trout. I think the Angels will trade him in the offseason. And it's just a cardinal move. You bring in a big guy that turns around fan excitement, and you roll the dice that he's going to get over these injuries and he's going to be a productive player. And that, I think, would give the Cardinal star power, a guy who can hit home runs. Now, if you're not going to do that, the total rebuild is what the Cardinals should do. They should wait out Matz's contract. They should try to trade Contreras, because I think there's a good chance you could do that. I think you could trade Gray by eating half of his salary. You're going to have to wait out Miles. That's one more year. I think you could trade Nolan Arenado because Colorado's eating part of that salary. You let Lynn go. You let Gibson go. You trade Fetty. You might be able to get something good for him. And you could literally, over the next 2 years, get the payroll down into the 50, 60 million range. And then literally stock up the farm system, draft good players. And then literally, when you get to a point, and all the ownership has to do is one thing. Say, look, we're going to have a